How's it going, everyone? Before here, welcome to Eliabas Radio. Thank you all for tuning in. We're back at it again with our personal vlogs, and we'll be continuing on the addiction topic, if you want to call it that. The thing that came to mind for me personally today, in regards to what I was talking about in terms of addiction, was the nature of urges and how urges are synonymous with addiction. They always say compulsion is the root, it's the root source of most of our kind of maybe destructive behaviors, if you want to put it that way. And sometimes it's not necessarily even from a bad place. It's actually by our natural design. It's kind of maybe we'll call it a flaw in the machine that we call being human. And so the reason why I talked about urges is because actually today I actually had one of those urges, and that urge is a feeling that you don't get from anything else. You know what I mean? It's a feeling of literally like electricity running through your body. It's like power, right? And being animals first, we're usually fueled by a desire, a goal, or a feeling that we're seeking to experience. Excuse me. And our urges tend to propel us towards that idea or that sensation that something's here or something's coming. That anticipating feeling. Call it dopamine, call it an adrenaline rush. Whatever biological reaction you can attribute to it, they're multiple. No, addiction and our urges are one and the same. And what I realized, having to kind of discipline and regulate myself in a way, is actually paying attention to urges, and actually investigating them for what they are, which is kind of an embarrassing thing in of itself. I feel we live in an age where we've been deprived of our ability to investigate our own inherent nature as animals. I'm not trying to, reduce, what it means to be human to like being an animal or anything like that. But what I am saying is that our society largely ignores our own physical experiences simply because everything is intellectualized. Everything is either theoretical, philosophical, or scientific. But the experiential aspect of it, investigating your own biology, is kind of shunned upon. And I think it's because it's maybe a bit raw and it's not so. It's one of those things you like to sweep under the rug or that you deal with behind the dark, when there are no prying eyes or anything like that. But ultimately, the truth is we are animals, and we have a certain animalistic element to our mind and our psyche, and call it the reptilian brain, or you know, yeah, it's definitely something that's rooted in our being, and so it's in terms of how these urges kind of affect the body and kind of fuel addiction is actually the energetic element that happens within your body. When you're doing something that's potentially deep, it's never as like exciting as something more compulsive, something that produces more energy within your body. And so everyone's different. Everyone has something that everyone has a different source for their high, but there is a generic sense that the more destructive things produce a much greater high than the most constructive things. That's simply because doing something constructive is stressful, it's tiring, it's boring, and it is mentally taxing. It doesn't give you the instant high that something compulsive and destructive is. So for instance, just watching porn, it's much easier to get your body energetically excitable, in a state of euphoria, rather than reading a book on personal evaluation and things like that. And our society is very dopamine driven by nature. So, we're more conditioned, from a societal standpoint, to seek things that bring stimulation much, much, much more immediately. Also, not coupled with that is the stressful lives that most of us live. It's harder to deal with issues when there's no kind of fuel or adrenaline helping you get through it. When you're just thugging things out and you're grinding it through. For most of us, that's a very difficult thing to gauge. When you have some type of fuel, some type of temporary excitement, it kind of bypasses the pain. And so, to make my thinking process here more like comprehensive, I'm just saying that, a lot of the things that we do, our addictions are actually, buffers to stress. And not only buffers to stress, they excite our body from a physiological standpoint faster than things that are non-addictive or, more constructive or more good and more, beneficial. Those things are very poor in terms of what they can do on a biological perspective, and it takes quite a substantial amount of time to train your mind to draw small elements of excitement and happiness and joy from less, excitable sensations in your body. And the more even difficult part of it is even more difficult part of it about us is that certain individuals are built for, the hype. They are built for the stimulation. Not everyone's an intellectual. I could attest to that myself. Not everyone is, book smart. Not everyone is into personal evaluation like that. Some people are here to live life in the now. And so when you deprive yourself of your primal urges, which kind of fuel you to live in the now, it actually kind of leaves you in a worse place. And so, people who aren't, mind orientated struggle the most with addiction simply because of their nature, and that's the difficult part of it. There's always the thing that, you gotta be more conscious and have a set of morals and principles. And those are great things. Those are great tools for cultivating yourself as a member of society. But ultimately, what I've realized is they become negligible when you have to deal with your own nature. Nature and theories and philosophies and methods. Nature tends to be very antagonistic at times towards those things. And so, it'll be interesting if people would integrate, as part of their rehabilitation, investigating their own nature, and really investigating their own nature. Not all of us are going to be a Jordan Peterson. We're not going to be able to psychologically deconstruct ourselves and, rebuild ourselves in some pretty way. For some of us, we're active in body. We really are active. That's how we go about our life. Some people just have a life which makes them, which exposes them to a lot of compulsion in general. And it is what it is. And, there has to be kind of an awareness of that, right? And a way of dealing with addiction when you are in a certain realm of operation. And again, to make my thoughts more comprehensive, I'm like, some of us are hype men, literally, and some of us are Zen men, and that's it, life is like that. And Zen men can often learn a lot from hype men because they live in the now. They live for life. They're very life-oriented people. And hype men can also learn from Zen men simply on how to evaluate and how to regulate yourself, and how to become more aware of your own tendencies so that you can better minimize them moving forward. And so, let me know what you guys think in the comment sections. Maybe some of you are hype men, some of you are Zen men, and some of you may be both. Some of you may be intro and outro at the same time, and that's also true. Even more difficult for you then. But it's interesting how our urges are kind of, inherently part of our mechanistic function, and how sometimes we, in order to, mitigate addiction, we have to go totally against our own inherent nature. And that's kind of a spiritual, mental, and psychological task in of itself. So let me know what you guys think. Do you think, what methods do you recommend, or what do you think about the whole perspective on addiction being fueled by urges, which are ultimately part of our, survival mechanism, part of our structure, as humans? And so, yeah, thanks all for tuning in. I hope I didn't ramble on too long. And yeah, we'll be out with another personal vlog video next week. Thank you.